before America hailed him as a hero, Abraham Lincoln was just a poor boy, reading borrowed books in the dark. That same child, with little schooling and almost no money, would one day confront a nation torn apart by war. Slave in a small wooden cabin, Lincoln held an old book under the weak glow of candlelight. Outside, the night was cold and quiet. His world felt small, his family impoverished. There was little comfort, little hope, and little reason to believe history would remember his name. Yet, page by page, something began to grow within him, not power, not fame, but an insatiable. Lincoln's story begins with a powerful question. How could a boy with almost no formal education become the man at the center of America's greatest crisis? This is not merely the tale of a president. It is the story of how learning can transform into courage, how language can wield power, and how one quiet mind can grow strong enough, returning to the hard world that shaped him before he was known. We find Lincoln born on February 12, 1809, in Kentucky. In a one-room log cabin, greatness was not expected to flourish. This rough frontier home was surrounded by toil, harsh weather, hunger, and uncertainty. His family struggled financially. His father, a farmer, worked tirelessly, while his mother. In this small world, childhood meant labor, not leisure. Young Abraham carried water, tended animals, and chopped wood for warmth. His hands learned the weight of survival long before they grasped any kind of power. However, amid this harsh life, his mother imparted vital lessons. She taught him honesty, kindness, and the importance of character. Even in a world that felt. At 7, the family moved to Indiana, seeking better land. The journey was fraught with challenges: forests, rivers, mud, and loneliness. They built another cabin, trying to start anew. But at just 9 years old, tragedy struck. His mother fell ill with milk sickness, a feared disease on the frontier. In 1818, Nancy passed away. For a child, losing a mother meant losing warmth, safety, and the nurturing voice that made the world less intimidating. This sorrow would linger in Lincoln's heart, and many would later see a deep sadness etched into his features, as if a part of his childhood had never fully healed. A year later, his father remarried. Sarah Bush Johnston became Abraham's stepmother. But more importantly, she nurtured his thirst for knowledge. She recognized the unusual mind in the tall, quiet boy and brought him books. In a world that offered him so little, her support opened a door. Through that door, Lincoln stepped into the only school that truly belonged to him, difficult, patient school of self-education, with only about a year of formal schooling, he learned in basic frontier classrooms where repetition was common. But he borrowed books wherever possible, sometimes walking miles to retrieve one. He devoured texts on history, George Washington, the Bible, mathematics, and eventually law. Each book became a teacher, each page offering him a bit more language, knowledge, and a measure of. Lincoln read slowly, not from weakness, but because he desired deep understanding. This lesson resonates for those learning English. Speed does not equal growth. One clear, understood sentence can linger longer than 10 hastily read pages. With paper scarce, Lincoln wrote wherever he could, on wooden planks, on the dirt with sticks. As he discovered storytelling, Lincoln found joy in humor. He listened intently, memorizing voices and tales, retelling them in ways that brought laughter. But his stories did more than entertain. They illuminated truths and softened harsh ideas, making them easier to grasp. This gift would follow, yet his education extended beyond books. As a young man, he worked hard, splitting logs, building fences, and traveling by flatboat down the Mississippi River. That journey took him to New Orleans, where he witnessed enslaved people being sold. The sight shocked him deeply. Human beings treated as his learning transformed. It was no longer just about self-improvement. He began to grasp that history is shaped by the painful struggles between money, power, and human dignity. This moral realization would haunt him throughout his life, following him into law and politics. At 22, when Lincoln moved to Illinois, he was no longer a boy merely searching for books. He was maturing into a man eager to engage with the world. Physical labor had forged his strength, but it could not quench his deeper thirst for knowledge about rules, arguments, rights, and justice. He began to study. There was no easy path for him. Lacking a wealthy family to fund his education, he borrowed law books, read them carefully, and sought answers to his many questions. Slowly, he trained himself to think like a lawyer. Once he passed the bar exam, he began working in the courtroom. Lincoln earned a reputation for honesty. People trusted him because he listened carefully, explained clearly, and spoke in simple words that anyone could comprehend. In a world where law and politics often felt distant, Lincoln's language bridged that gap, making complex things. His reputation grew not to be confused with mere fame. Reputation is built through choices, and Lincoln's choices demonstrated fairness, hard work, and a commitment to justice. Soon, the call of in 1834, at 25, he was elected to the Illinois state legislature. The boy who once borrowed books from neighbors was now a voice for voters. Yet his private life bore both love and pain. He married Mary Todd in 1842, a woman from a wealthier, more educated background. Their marriage was complicated, but together they built a family in Lincoln loved his children deeply, yet loss shadowed his joy. Edward died young, and later William followed. Behind the public figure was a father who understood the weight of grief, with the nation increasingly polarized over slavery. Lincoln's voice grew strong. He served a term in the United States Congress, speaking out against the expansion of slavery. In 1858, he faced Stephen Douglas in a Senate race, engaging in 7 debates. Though he lost, the country remembered his words. Sometimes, history opens doors not through victory, but through. Then, in 1860, Lincoln was elected president. It should have been a moment of triumph, yet it marked the onset of turmoil as the Union began to fracture. Stepping into the presidency, Lincoln faced the heaviest burden of his life. In March 1861, he was sworn in, and just a month later, a civil war is one of the saddest forms of conflict, tearing a country apart from within. Families were divided. Friends found themselves on opposite sides. The nation that spoke of liberty was now battling for its very future. For 4 agonizing years, Lincoln bore the weight of that conflict. Over 600,000 lives were lost. Each battlefield report was more than just a number. It represented a son, a father, a brother, a home forever changed. The toll aged Lincoln. His nights became restless. The sorrow of the nation etched into his soul. Yet, in that darkness, he made a decision. In 1863, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring enslaved people in the Confederate States free. This act didn't resolve everything, but it shifted the war towards a greater moral cause. The Union would not just survive, it would move closer to freedom. That same year at Gettysburg, Lincoln spoke for mere minutes, yet his words he honored the fallen, defended democracy, and envisioned a renewed birth of freedom. For those learning English, this moment illustrates that powerful words need not be complicated. They must be clear, true, and deeply felt. In April 1865, the Union triumphed. Slavery would be abolished through the 13th Amendment, but peace was fleeting. On April 14th, 1865, he was shot at Ford's Theater, passing away the next morning. His life ended abruptly, yet his words lived on. Lincoln's journey teaches us that greatness often sprouts from humble beginnings, sometimes in silence, loss, and the dim light of a cabin where a child strives to. Though lacking formal education, Lincoln never ceased to learn. He faced grief, failure, division, and the weight of war. Yet, through it all, he held onto honesty, courage, and the belief in human dignity. His life reminds us that words are more than language. They can be bridges, challenge injustice. For today's listener, the lesson resonates. Do not wait for perfect conditions to grow. Read a little, listen a little, learn a little, speak with truth. Every small step can forge a stronger mind and a better future. Perhaps you don't have the best school, the ideal environment, or unwavering confidence right now. Yet, like Lincoln, you can slowly build yourself through learning, patience, and character. One page, one new word, one meaningful story, one honest thought, one brave sentence. Small efforts may seem insignificant today, but over time, and so the question remains: if a boy with borrowed books could help change history, what can words build within you today? What lesson from Lincoln's life has touched you the most? Share your thoughts and let everyone learn from your perspective.